Hello. In this session, we will look at an introduction to the backend for your state file. So, your backend in the Terraform configuration simply defines where Terraform should store the state file. So, by default, until now, we have not been using this backend configuration. However, if you want to use a custom backend, you can make use of this backend configuration within your configuration file. So, here we will be defining a Terraform block, and within the Terraform block we will be defining the backend type. So in this case, for example, if you see, I'm defining the local backend. That means I want to use the local machine as my backend to store the Terraform state file. So at any point, if you want to store your state files, we make use of this backend configuration, backend block within your configuration file. So Terraform uses persistent state data to keep track of the resources it manages. Now, most of the non-trivial Terraform configurations either integrate with Terraform Cloud or use a backend to store state remotely. So you will never see anyone using local as your backend. You'll always see someone using, for example, an S3 bucket to store their backend. However, if you're only one person in the team, or if you're using it for the testing purpose, using this local backend is fine. So with this remote option, all right, so if you're using this remote backend, this lets multiple people access the state data and work together on that collection of infrastructure resources. Now, what the available backends we have? So by default, Terraform uses a backend called local, which stores the state as a local file on the disk. So even if you're not uh, specifying anything, so until now we have not defined the backend configuration anywhere in our Terraform code, right? So by default, Terraform uses this local backend to store the state file on the local machine. You can also configure one of the built-in backends included in the documentation. So we look at the list of backends that are available. Some of these backends act like plain remote disks for state files, while others support locking the state while operations are being performed. Now, the built-in backends are the only backends. We cannot load any additional backends as plugins. So Terraform supports a list of backends. We can only use those backends. We cannot use any other backends as a plugins. So how do you use a backend block? You do not need to configure a backend because Terraform Cloud automatically manages the state in the workspaces associated with the configuration. So if you're using Terraform Cloud, you don't have to worry about the backend block. Terraform Cloud automatically manages that for you. But now we are not using the Terraform Cloud. We will be having a separate section for the Terraform Cloud. So if the configuration includes a cloud block, it cannot include a backend block. So you can either use the cloud block in your code, or you can use the backend block in your code. Now to configure a backend, add a nested backend block within the top level Terraform block. So for this backend configuration, we will be defining this Terraform block, and within the Terraform block, we will be defining the backend as to what type of backend you want to use. In this case, I'm defining a remote backend, the organization, and then which workspace this backend should be using. So at any point, if you want to define a backend, this is how we will be defining the backend. Within the Terraform block, we will be defining the backend type. Now, generally, when we are talking about the backend, there are two types of store that we can use for storing the state files for the resources created using Terraform. We have the local backend, and then we have the remote backend. All right. Now, the local backend simply refers to the Terraform state stored on the local system, which is on your laptop or wherever you are running the Terraform command. So, in my case, I'm running the Terraform command on the EC2 instance. So, EC2 becomes my local machine, and by default, whenever I say the backend is local, the state file will be stored on the local machine itself. And then we have the remote backend. The state is Terraform state stored remotely, such as in an S3 bucket or in a database like Postgres SQL database. All right, so if you're working with multiple people, then remote is what you'll be using. And depending on the cloud platform, if you're on AWS, then S3 is what you will be using to store your state file. That's basically your introduction to the state file backend. That's all for this session. Thank you. Once again, before you leave, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you like the video, leave a like and please share the video.